Gerald Eaton, hanged July the 16th, 1957. At 12:05 a.m. on Tuesday, July the 16th, 1957, Gerald Edward Eaton, 51, was hanged at the Oakalla Prison Farm in Burnaby, British Columbia, for the beating death of 8-year-old Carolyn Moore at Langley, BC, on April the 26th, 1956. Eaton, who guards described as, quote, one of the quietest, most meek and mild prisoners, end of quote, was pronounced dead at 12:20 a.m. Eaton had no last words. He had killed his victim with both his fists and with a tire iron. Eaton was a lifelong pedophile who had come to Saskatchewan from his native England in 1929. While in Saskatchewan, he would serve 8 months in the Regina jail for the crime of seduction under promise of marriage. The girl was under 16. Eaton, 28 or 29. Eaton moved to British Columbia in 1941 and worked on Fraser River ferry boats, eventually earning his captain's ticket. He was already under investigation for child sexual abuse on April the 26th, 1956, when he enticed 8-year-old Carolyn into his vehicle, driving her to his home where he began to touch her inappropriately. When the poor child began screaming, he beat her until she became unconscious. After driving around with her in the trunk of his car, Eaton took Carolyn into the bush, where he killed her with repeated blows from a tire iron. At trial, Eaton claimed he had run over Carolyn and that her death was accidental, but the jury didn't believe him. Still, Eaton was given a second trial, since, in the words of criminologist Neil Boyd, quote, some statements made by the accused to the police were not entirely voluntary, end of quote. According to Neil Boyd, a police officer had told Eaton he felt like throwing him out a window. Nevertheless, Eaton's second trial also ended in a guilty verdict. While awaiting execution, Eaton wrote to Canadian Prime Minister John George Diefenbaker, a lifelong opponent of capital punishment. Quote, I feel that given the chance, I can help others more unfortunate than myself in the penitentiary, and so make at least a partial contribution towards repaying for the harm I have done. I am also asking you to show this mercy towards me, so that the innocent will not suffer too much, such as my wife, who has nothing left, and my son, who hopes to grow into a useful citizen. End of quote. As noted earlier, Diefenbaker hated the death penalty, but he didn't take Eaton up on his suggestion. The victim's father, Lawrence Moore, attended Eaton's hanging and said, quote, I have had two choices in the matter. One was to continue through life with the mental picture of this man beating my daughter to death. The other was to see him hanged for the crime. Only the latter can obliterate from my memory the former picture. Moore also viewed Eaton's face after he was hanged, but said he could still not forgive his daughter's murderer. The primary source for today's video, including the Eaton and Lawrence Moore quotes, was Neil Boyd's book, The Last Dance, Murder in Canada. Newspaper coverage was somewhat confused, with one account listing Carolyn's age as 18, but I put links in the description to everything I found. If you enjoyed today's video, please drop a like, comment, and consider subscribing to The Gallows, where we explore Canadian murder cases which ended on the scaffold. And remember, if you're born to hang, you'll never be shot. Cheers.